On the very morning King Charles stood on the royal balcony, Prince Harry was behind closed doors, shouting at Meghan Markle. In a stunning twist that has shaken royal watchers worldwide, insiders reveal a fiery confrontation erupted between Harry and Meghan just hours before Trooping the Colour 2025. While his family gathered in London, Harry reportedly pleaded to attend, only for Meghan to shut it down with a chilling ultimatum: "It's them or me." In this exclusive breakdown, we uncover leaked texts, eyewitness accounts, and a silence from the palace that speaks louder than words. What really happened inside Montecito that morning? And has this royal rift now fractured something even deeper, the Sussex marriage itself? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What happens when personal ambition collides with royal tradition? What if behind the glossy smiles, the charity handshakes, and the public statements lies a house divided, blaming, seething, unraveling in real time? At the heart of this unfolding drama is the most recognizable couple in the modern monarchy, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. On June 14, 2025, while the skies over London roared with the celebratory thunder of RAF jets and streets shimmered with Union Jacks and royal pageantry, something or someone was missing. As thousands gathered to witness King Charles's second official Trooping the Colour as reigning monarch, there were many familiar faces: Queen Camilla waving gracefully from the carriage, Prince William flanked by Catherine and their growing children, and Princess Anne riding horseback with stern dignity. But where were Harry and Meghan? For the second consecutive year, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were not seen among the royal family, not even discreetly on a balcony or in a distant pew at the chapel. And this time, it wasn't simply their absence that drew whispers. It was what reportedly exploded behind closed doors the morning of the ceremony that has stunned palace insiders and split public opinion in half. This video will take you behind the closed doors of a Sussex household in crisis. According to sources close to both sides, the morning of the trooping event saw a fierce confrontation between Harry and Meghan. A blame game, heated words, accusations of sabotage, and, in the words of one unnamed aide, a fight that was never supposed to happen, but has clearly been building for years. Over the next few chapters, we'll reconstruct what happened that morning, detail how the rift with the royal family may have finally reached its tipping point, and explore what this very public no-show at a national event says about the future of the monarchy, the Sussex brand, and their family itself. But before we get there, let's take a step back. Why does this moment matter so much? Trooping the Colour isn't just another parade. It's the most symbolic and unifying tradition in the royal calendar, steeped in centuries of history and reinforced in recent decades as a measure of stability, duty, and family togetherness. It's the one event where even the most divided royal factions, when they can stomach it, set aside their differences for the sake of optics, if not unity. And yet, despite years of strained relations, behind-the-scenes negotiations, and fleeting reconciliatory moments, Harry and Meghan weren't there. And not just weren't there, weren't invited, according to some insiders. But others suggest something far more scandalous, that they were expected. That King Charles, in a subtle but meaningful gesture, had left the door open. And that it was internal friction between Harry and Meghan that led to them staying away. Could it really be that simple? Or is this another example of a broader narrative playing out? The gradual deconstruction of what was once the most glamorous couple in the royal firmament? Is this about protocol, pain, or power? As we peel back each layer, the threads of tension begin to reveal a far more complicated and far more human story. Because beneath the palatial wealth and international scrutiny, Harry and Meghan remain two individuals navigating immense pressures, conflicting expectations, and deeply personal wounds. And like many couples, especially those living under an unforgiving microscope, they don't always agree on how to move forward. In fact, sources close to the Sussexes describe a growing pattern of disagreement over their media strategy, public appearances, financial priorities, and even their children's exposure. Meghan has reportedly been pushing for greater control over their image and timing, while Harry remains torn between his Californian retreat and an invisible tether to the royal institution that defined his entire existence. And this past weekend, that unresolved tension finally exploded. Some say Meghan had no intention of returning to Britain for a ceremonial event she views as performative. Others say Harry was desperate to be seen again in uniform, even just once, to reassert a semblance of dignity, especially after months of damaging headlines and plummeting popularity polls. What's clear is this: something snapped. Whether it was the culmination of months of quiet arguments or a sudden collision of separate ambitions, the two failed to present a united front, and the world took notice. And the fallout? Leaks, contradictory statements, damage control, stories surfacing in both British and American tabloids painting very different pictures, some blaming Meghan for pulling the plug at the last second, others suggesting Harry stormed out of the house early that morning, slamming the door behind him. Already, the narrative is being twisted by commentators on both sides of the Atlantic. Royal traditionalists claim it's another example of the Sussexes' refusal to respect royal traditions. Meghan defenders argue she's being unfairly scapegoated again. Harry supporters insist he's being manipulated, his royal identity slowly stripped away by public disassociation. And meanwhile, palace insiders, always careful with their words, have started using one phrase more than once: irreparable breach. The mystery of why Harry and Meghan were absent is no longer just about logistics. It's now about accountability, about how the cracks in their marriage, their brand, and their place within the royal ecosystem are being exposed in real time. And while Harry has always portrayed himself as a loyal son, misunderstood but principled, this latest episode has put him in an impossible position, stuck between a wife who feels ostracized and a family that demands loyalty without compromise. In this video, we're going to analyze it all. Not just the fight itself, but what led to it. The years of friction, the PR disasters, the back-channel royal messages, and the ambitions of two people trying to live publicly, yet somehow privately, while constantly under fire. We'll also examine whether the events of June 14th are a turning point, one that sets the stage for either a permanent break from royal life or a surprise pivot back to some form of reconciliation. Stay with us, because this isn't just a story about missed parades or angry words. It's a story about identity, power, betrayal, and perhaps most of all, about the cost of choosing your own path when everyone expects you to follow theirs. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to answer for yourself the one question no one seems to agree on. Was their absence a power move or a devastating mistake? Let's begin. The moment the royal carriage procession began, cameras zoomed in on every inch of the Buckingham Palace forecourt. Crowds gathered on the Mall held up smartphones, flags, and signs in eager anticipation. Trooping the Color 2025 wasn't just a traditional military pageant, it was the first since King Charles publicly acknowledged his health battles earlier this year. It was the first since Kate Middleton's return to public duties following her own well-documented health journey. It was a symbolic show of resilience from a monarchy under pressure. And yet, one question echoed through whispers, tweets, and global headlines. Where were Harry and Meghan? At first, many believed their absence might be by design, a way to avoid distracting attention from the king's big day. But by noon, murmurs began turning into full-blown speculation. Key media correspondents from Sky News and BBC hesitated to bring it up directly, instead noting who was present before tiptoeing around who was conspicuously missing. By mid-afternoon, however, the tone had changed entirely. BBC's royal analyst, Tina Langdon, commented on air, "We had heard unconfirmed reports that some invitation or overture may have been extended, perhaps informally, to Prince Harry. But as you can see, there is no sign of him, and the official statement from Buckingham Palace remains, well, deliberately ambiguous." The Daily Mail posted a breaking headline around 3:30 p.m. that read, "Sussex absence a deliberate snub, say palace insiders." The article claimed multiple royal sources had confirmed behind the scenes that Harry was expected, or at least hoped for, especially given Charles's emotional appeal for family unity earlier in the week during a private engagement at Windsor. According to one aide cited in the report, the king had told several senior staffers he hoped all his children could be seen together again, even just for a moment. That quote alone sent shockwaves through the media landscape. Social media platforms were ablaze. Twitter trends such as #WhereIsHarry and #SussexSnub began circulating in both the UK and US. TikTok users dissected every angle of the parade's footage, searching for any sign that the Sussexes might have been watching from afar or keeping a low profile nearby. But there was nothing. No sightings. No unofficial footage. No tabloid paparazzi leaks. Just absence and silence. It didn't take long for royal correspondents to start calling their sources directly. According to ITV's royal reporter, Elise Winthrop, a senior palace figure described Harry's absence as deeply disappointing, particularly given Charles's hopes that this year's Trooping the Colour could be a moment of healing. The king knows his time is finite. This wasn't just another ceremonial engagement. It was a symbolic gesture of continuity, legacy, and reconciliation, the source allegedly said. He didn't want an apology. He just wanted his son nearby. Meanwhile, U.S. tabloids like Page Six and TMZ ran a very different version of events. Their unnamed sources suggested Harry had begged Meghan to reconsider attending, reportedly telling her the invitation was informal but significant. However, Meghan allegedly stood her ground, citing past mistreatment, possible booing from the crowd, and her refusal to play the palace's game anymore. One TMZ headline screamed, "Meghan said no again." That article was picked up by dozens of secondary platforms, each adding its own speculative twist. Some framed Meghan as protective, not wanting their children, Archie and Lilibet, to be caught in another royal media storm. Others took a more critical approach, implying that she used the event as a power play to further distance themselves from the monarchy, just as their US-based media and philanthropic empire continues to shrink. What intensified the backlash, however, was the fact that Prince Harry had reportedly arranged for a quiet, last-minute trip to London just 2 weeks prior. Photographers captured blurry images of him at Heathrow, wearing a ball cap and sunglasses, accompanied by a single bodyguard. According to royal journalist Tom Willis, Harry had flown in to discuss something of personal nature with his father, perhaps even extend an olive branch. But when no photographs emerged of the father and son together, and no public statements acknowledged Harry's visit, speculation turned dark. Some believed Meghan shut the whole thing down the moment he returned to California. Others believed the royals had coldly rebuffed his efforts once again, leading him to abandon plans to attend altogether. Regardless of the truth, one thing was clear: the public saw the absence not as coincidence but conflict. By Sunday morning, the headlines had turned from speculation to condemnation. The Times ran a front-page editorial titled, "A Prince Without a Place," arguing that Harry's failure to attend was a profound embarrassment and a dereliction of his duty, not to the crown but to his father. The Guardian, more measured in tone, focused on the implications for the monarchy, noting how the family's inability to unify on one of the most important days in the royal calendar will undoubtedly fuel Republican arguments in the years to come. Back in Montecito, things reportedly weren't any calmer. A source close to one of Meghan's former staff members revealed that the household was in turmoil the morning of the event. According to the source, there were loud voices. Something about respect, loyalty, and being made to look weak. It was not a good morning. This insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, said that Harry was visibly emotional, pacing the house while on the phone with someone, likely a royal aide or perhaps his brother William. At one point, the source claimed Harry exclaimed, "I should be there, this is my family," and slammed a door so hard it shook the windows. This story, once picked up by tabloids in the UK and Australia, sparked another wave of fury. Columnists began writing about how Harry was once again being held hostage by domestic drama, while his family publicly rallied in a time of national reflection. Perhaps the most cutting reaction came from Angela Morris, a respected columnist for The Telegraph, who wrote, "If Prince Harry still wishes to be seen as a member of the royal family, even in name only, he cannot pick and choose when family matters suit him. One cannot inherit a legacy without also inheriting the responsibility that comes with it." His absence on Saturday proved that he has not yet made peace with either. The fallout continued to build when neither Harry nor Meghan made any public comment about the event. Not even a social media post acknowledging the king's appearance, Catherine's return, or the military spectacle. Silence became its own message, and critics interpreted it as calculated. That same weekend, PR experts weighed in, noting that the Sussexes missed a massive opportunity to reframe their narrative. According to Olivia Harrow, a senior communications strategist interviewed by The Sun, if Meghan had shown up, even briefly, it could have rewritten months of bad headlines. It could have softened hearts. Instead, the absence felt like a slap, not just to the family but to the nation. A day later, a private email allegedly written by an Archwell Foundation employee surfaced online. Though unverified, it claimed the team had prepared a statement congratulating the king on a successful trooping to color, complete with a family photo of Harry, Meghan, and their children dressed formally. But the message was reportedly scrapped at the last minute due to internal disagreement. That leak, real or not, sent the media into overdrive. It added a new layer to the story, that the couple couldn't even agree on whether to issue a statement about an event involving Harry's own father. The email mentioned that Meghan felt it would be hypocritical to release a message when she stood firmly opposed to the spectacle of monarchy, while Harry was torn and wanted to acknowledge his father's health and effort. Royal watchers are now calling this the lowest point yet in Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family. And while the couple's defenders argue that they are entitled to make their own choices, critics say the choice to miss such a momentous occasion, without explanation, shows a deep disrespect not just to Charles, but to the institution Harry once called home. As of this writing, Buckingham Palace has issued no further statement. Neither has Clarence House, Kensington Palace, or Archwell. But the silence speaks volumes. Whether deliberate or not, the Sussex's absence has become the most talked about detail of Trooping the Colour 2025. And as the fallout continues, the royal family has returned to its usual strategy. Say nothing, smile publicly, and carry on. But for Harry and Meghan, the damage may already be done. And for many observers, the question now isn't whether they can repair the relationship, but whether they even want it anymore. In the days following the Trooping the Colour, a new thread of speculation began dominating both the tabloids and online platforms. Was Meghan Markle the reason they didn't go? Was this decision a matter of principle, or was it a strategic move that went wrong? And most importantly, was Harry truly on board, or was he simply dragged along for another media storm he didn't want? To answer those questions, we must first rewind to the days and weeks leading up to the event. On the surface, the Sussexes appeared relatively quiet in the days preceding the parade. No major public appearances, no interviews, no press releases. But behind the silence, palace aides were reportedly hopeful that Harry would make an effort to attend, even if solo. According to one anonymous source from Clarence House, informal communication had taken place as early as May. The message was simple. King Charles would not formally invite Harry through press statements or public gestures, but he was leaving the door open for his son to show up, to stand beside his family, and perhaps begin a silent process of repair. He didn't want to create a scene, the source claimed. But he also didn't want to miss a moment that might allow for a small step forward. The king wanted him there. According to multiple insider reports, Harry was seriously considering it. Quiet preparations were said to be in motion. Travel logistics were being quietly explored, including private jet availability and security arrangements through the Royal and Diplomatic Protection Group. The plan was reportedly for Harry to arrive the night before, appear briefly during the ceremony, and leave before any private family gathering. However, something shifted in the final stretch. And according to sources close to Meghan's circle, it was her disapproval that ultimately changed everything. An ex-friend of Meghan's from her days in Toronto, who requested anonymity, claimed that Meghan was deeply uncomfortable with the idea of returning to the UK under those circumstances. She didn't want to be treated like an afterthought or like a tolerated inconvenience. If she went, she wanted control over the narrative, and there was no way she would get that at Trooping the Colour. For Meghan, the prospect of standing on the sidelines while Kate and Camilla took center stage was, according to the source, a non-starter. This was not a stage she was willing to walk onto unless the spotlight was at least partially shared. And the idea of simply watching from the wings, or worse, being booed, was reportedly seen as humiliating. One of the key motivations behind Meghan's stance, according to royal commentator Harriet Morris, lies in her long-standing discomfort with the royal hierarchy. Meghan never accepted her place as secondary to the senior royals. In her mind, her platform, her activism, and her message were on par with, if not more important than, tradition. She wanted to modernize things. But when that failed, she rejected the system entirely. One of the key motivations behind Meghan's stance, according to royal commentator Harriet Morris, lies in her long-standing discomfort with the royal hierarchy. Meghan never accepted her place as secondary to the senior royals. In her mind, her platform, her activism, and her message were on par with, if not more important than, tradition. She wanted to modernize things. But when that failed, she rejected the system entirely. This rejection seems to have resurfaced in the days before the parade. Meghan's team reportedly advised her that the UK tabloids were ready to pounce if she appeared. Several outlets had already commissioned columnists to write about hypocrisy and PR stunts. And so, as the event drew closer, Meghan began pushing back on Harry's desire to go. An Archwell insider told a US-based podcast that Meghan allegedly posed a direct question to Harry on the morning of June 12. Why would you walk into the fire again? For what? A 5-second balcony shot that they'll turn into 1,000 insults. It's a valid point, and one that many in Meghan's camp echo. Her defenders argue that she has endured years of racist headlines, relentless scrutiny, and public mockery from both British and American press. To appear publicly at a royal event without any guarantee of protection or support would, in their view, have been reckless. But critics argue that Meghan's choice was less about self-preservation and more about control. Royal biographer Simon Cleeves offered a different take in a televised interview. Meghan Markle wants the power to dictate the terms of engagement, literally. She wants to shape how she appears, where, when, and with what message. But trooping the color doesn't allow that. It's rigid. It's traditional. It's not a stage for individual narratives. And that is fundamentally at odds with how she operates. There are also whispers that Meghan feared being upstaged. With Princess Catherine making her first official public appearance after months of medical leave, the eyes of the world would inevitably be on the Princess of Wales. Any appearance by Meghan would have been a supporting act, if not a distraction. And some insiders suggest that Meghan didn't want to be seen at all if she couldn't command attention. A source close to a senior royal aide claimed there was an unspoken understanding. If Meghan showed up, it would create tension. But if she didn't, and Harry did, it might be a turning point. The fact that neither showed speaks volumes. What remains unclear is how much of this decision was mutual. Did Harry agree with Meghan's reasoning? Or was he simply worn down? Body language experts who analyzed Harry's recent public appearances claim he's visibly strained, often looking away when Meghan speaks in interviews and keeping his hands tightly clasped in group photos. Dr. Aaron Lowe, a behavioral psychologist who studied high-profile couples, told a news outlet that Harry shows the signs of internal conflict between appeasing his partner and maintaining some link to his past identity. In the days leading up to the parade, Harry reportedly held private conversations with several close friends from his time in the military and from his days at Eton. One longtime friend told a publication that Harry seemed torn, almost tortured. He wanted to go. He missed it. But he didn't want to hurt Meghan either. And she made it clear it was either the life they built or the one he left behind. This ultimatum, whether stated directly or implied, may have been the final push. Interestingly, Meghan's own schedule during trooping weekend was remarkably clear. No public events. No photo ops. Some speculate this was done purposefully to avoid sending the wrong signal. But it also meant there were no distractions. Her absence, like Harry's, became a story in itself. Another layer to this controversy comes from the Sussex's Archwell brand. As their public relevance continues to be tied to their royal history, many analysts argue that re-engaging, even minimally, with royal events like Trooping the Colour could help rehabilitate their image. Missing such a high-profile opportunity could therefore be seen as a brand miscalculation. Some insiders believe Meghan pushed Harry to decline the event because she feared another narrative loss. If they attended and were placed at the back or in the audience, the headlines would have been brutal, said royal PR consultant Amina Clark. She wasn't willing to give up control for a moment she couldn't manage. But what about Harry? Couldn't he have gone alone? That, according to several insiders, is where the argument began. On the morning of the event, tensions inside the Montecito mansion were allegedly high. One staff member later told a source that Harry had requested formal dress to be prepared, including a custom suit tailored for official functions. But that same outfit reportedly never made it out of the wardrobe. A late-breaking report from an entertainment insider alleged that Harry and Meghan had a blow-up argument the night before trooping. The conversation, allegedly overheard by a staff member, included phrases like, "You don't understand what this means to me," and "I thought we agreed we'd do things together." Another source close to the couple described it as an emotional eruption, months of tension coming out in one night. Whether or not the specifics are true, the pattern is consistent with previous reports. Over the years, insiders have regularly cited Meghan's desire to protect Harry from what she calls the toxic cycles of his past. But increasingly, critics are asking, at what cost? Is the intention protection or isolation? To understand Meghan's mindset fully, one must remember her entry into the royal family. From the beginning, she faced criticism not just for who she was, but for what she represented. A mixed-race, American, divorced actress stepping into one of the most rigid and scrutinized institutions in the world. From the start, she challenged convention, and convention pushed back. But in 2025, things are different. The monarchy is trying to adapt. Catherine's illness prompted waves of public sympathy. King Charles's openness about his diagnosis made headlines for their humanity. The door, in many ways, has been opened. And Meghan still said no. As the dust settles, more questions are emerging than answers. Did she prevent Harry from going out of fear? Out of strategy? Or out of a belief that the door was never truly open to begin with? Whatever the reason, Meghan's justification has now become a flashpoint. Her supporters claim she is simply protecting her peace. Her critics say she's manipulating the narrative again. And stuck in the middle is Harry, left to explain, or justify, or stay silent. And that silence, for many, is deafening. As the flags waved in London and the royal band played its first anthem on Horse Guards Parade, Prince Harry sat thousands of miles away in California, physically distant, emotionally conflicted, and, according to insiders, more unsettled than ever before. The choice not to attend the Trooping the Color wasn't just another skipped royal event. For Harry, this year's ceremony held layered meaning. It wasn't only a chance to stand beside his father, who had openly battled health challenges, but also an opportunity to reconnect, even symbolically, with the family and institution that shaped his life. The same institution he once served, once resented, and in many ways, still loved. But as the morning of June 14th arrived, Harry found himself once again caught in a familiar torment. Between his role as a husband and his lingering sense of responsibility as a son and a prince. Sources close to the couple report that Harry had not only been considering a solo appearance, he had already laid out the logistics. A private security team had been briefed. A wardrobe assistant had prepared 2 possible outfits, one for a formal in-person appearance and another for a possible pre-recorded video message or tribute. Royal watchers say this alone suggests that, at least at one point, Harry fully intended to mark the occasion in some way. But by sunrise, the plan had collapsed. One former member of his security detail claims Harry was pacing inside the Montecito home's private study, phone in hand, mumbling to himself about timing, optics, and what they'd say if I did show up. The source claims that shortly after 6 a.m. local time, Harry tried reaching out to someone in the UK, possibly a palace aide or even Prince William, but got no answer. That silence, they say, pushed him further into doubt. What was playing out wasn't just a media narrative. It was a deep internal struggle. Because no matter how far Harry has traveled physically or ideologically from the royal family, emotionally, he's never fully left. Throughout his adult life, Harry has spoken about the tension between duty and freedom. From his candid interviews with Oprah to his pages in Spare, the theme remains constant. The conflict between who he was raised to be and who he wants to become. On the morning of Trooping the Color 2025, that conflict seemed to boil over in real time. Close friend and Invictus Games co-founder James Weatherby was reportedly on the phone with Harry that weekend. Though not willing to disclose the details of their conversation, Weatherby hinted in an interview with an Australian outlet that Harry was wrestling with a lot of emotional weight that day. When pressed, he added, Harry's heart is still very much in London. But his reality is here, in California. And that disconnect, well, it's not always easy. One of the most revealing details came from a neighbor of the Sussexes, who claimed they heard raised voices coming from the house that morning. The neighbor, who lives just 3 homes down the exclusive Montecito lane, described the sounds as intense and emotional, less like an argument, more like someone breaking down. It wouldn't be the first time Harry has been described as emotionally overwhelmed by royal events. Past reports have suggested that even watching footage of his family attending royal engagements without him can trigger what insiders call profound waves of grief and regret. Despite everything he has said about the institution, Harry reportedly still feels a connection that he can't shake. During his time in the UK military, Harry often referred to himself as a man of duty. He was proud of his service, proud of his work in Afghanistan, and proud of being a prince who actually walked the walk. But since stepping back from royal duties, that part of his identity has been quietly eroded. No uniform at trooping, no salute, no presence, and this year, no excuse. The sense of being unmoored has apparently been growing. A friend of Harry's, speaking anonymously to The Times, said he's lost the symbols that grounded him. The military titles, the ceremonies, the structure, and he's replaced it with something more fluid, but also more unstable. and sometimes that freedom can feel like freefall. This year's trooping marked an inflection point. With King Charles's health a concern and Princess Catherine's fragile return to public life, Harry was acutely aware of the opportunity, and insiders say it haunted him. According to one former palace staffer who still maintains distant contact with members of Harry's inner circle, the Duke of Sussex was deeply conflicted. They noted that he wanted to show up, not for the cameras, but for his father. Yet, he reportedly said that doing so would be interpreted as a betrayal either of Meghan or of the stand he took when they left. It's this idea, being forced to choose sides, that defines so much of Harry's recent turmoil. On one side, he has a wife who has faced relentless public scrutiny, who stood by him as he broke from the only life he ever knew, and who expects loyalty at all costs. On the other, he has a family, imperfect, damaged, yet still tethered to his sense of self. It's not just emotional, it's personal. Deeply so. In private moments, friends say Harry has confessed to feeling like he lives in two worlds. One is his past, structured, restrictive, and judgmental. The other is his present, free, expressive, but isolating. The future? That's the part he can't seem to envision clearly. When asked in a past interview what he missed most about royal life, Harry once replied, "The camaraderie, the purpose, the duty." That statement now reads as a quiet admission of longing. And if sources are to be believed, it was precisely those three things that drove him to want to attend Trooping the Colour 2025. But intention doesn't always equal action. Meghan, as mentioned in previous reports, was allegedly firmly opposed to the trip, not just because of optics, but because of what it symbolized. Her belief, as told by one of her former media advisors, was that returning under any circumstances where she's not front and center is regressive. The advisor claimed Meghan said something to the effect of, "Why go back just to be reminded we were never welcome?" This mindset placed Harry in a difficult position. Was attending the event worth creating new tension at home? Or would it mean publicly conceding that he still craved a connection to the monarchy he had vowed to escape? Faced with these choices, Harry reportedly fell into a state of emotional paralysis. By the time the parade began, the decision had already been made, or more accurately, avoided. In the hours following the parade, Harry was said to be unusually quiet. Staff noted that he canceled a scheduled video call with a veterans group and instead stayed inside all day. The couple was not seen in public for nearly 48 hours. When word reached him that King Charles had looked frail but proud during the balcony appearance, one insider claimed Harry stared at the photo for several minutes before muttering, "I should have been there." The insider, who described the moment as heartbreaking, said it was one of the few times Harry showed open regret without immediately trying to justify the choice. This emotional tug-of-war is not new for Harry. But this time, it unfolded against the backdrop of a deeply symbolic event, one that underscored everything he's lost, everything he's holding on to, and everything he still can't quite reconcile. Royal historian Dr. Lewis Calder put it this way during a panel discussion: Prince Harry is the living embodiment of a constitutional dilemma, one foot in tradition, one in modernity. And while he's tried to build a new identity, he's still deeply defined by the one he left behind. Calder continued, "He didn't go to Trooping the Colour, but that doesn't mean he wasn't present in spirit. Sometimes absence speaks louder than presence. And in Harry's case, that silence was deafening." As the event faded into memory, discussions around Harry's no-show only intensified. But beneath the noise, the Royal story might be far quieter and far sadder. It's the story of a man torn between honoring the life he has chosen and mourning the one he abandoned. For now, Harry remains in California. But sources say the internal conflict hasn't gone away. In fact, it may be building. Because while he didn't show up on June 14th, he may have left a part of himself back in London. And whether he admits it publicly or not, the question still haunts him. Is it too late to come back? Behind the ivy-covered gates of their sprawling Montecito estate, while the world watched red-jacketed soldiers march through London and RAF jets paint streaks of color across the sky, something entirely different was unfolding in California. It wasn't royal. It wasn't ceremonial. It was raw, human, and, according to multiple sources, loud. By now, the headlines had already spread across 2 continents. Where are Harry and Meghan? Sussex is absent again. King Charles alone on the balcony. But what few people knew was that in the hours leading up to the Trooping the Colour 2025, tensions inside the Sussex residence were nearing a breaking point. A longtime member of the household staff, who spoke on condition of anonymity, described the morning of June 14th as volatile. According to their recollection, there was no usual peace or order, no signs of quiet contemplation or a decision already made. Instead, there was pacing, raised voices, closed doors slamming shut, and then silence. It felt like a house on edge, they said. The source claimed the first signs of trouble began as early as 5:30 a.m. local time. Harry reportedly woke early, restless, moving between his bedroom and the library. At one point, he stood alone in the garden, looking out across the horizon, headphones in, possibly listening to news coverage from London. The staff member noted that he looked haunted, almost distant. Meanwhile, Meghan had reportedly remained upstairs, holding a private call with a member of her PR team. She was described as calm but focused, issuing instructions about social media settings, photo permissions, and upcoming press statements. According to the source, trouble started when Harry re-entered the house and asked if Meghan had changed her mind about making a brief statement about the king. He asked her, gently at first, if they could record something simple, a message of congratulations, or even just a neutral gesture, said the source. She didn't respond right away. But then she said, "Why would I do that? We're not their puppets." That one line, insiders say, was the spark. What followed was not just a disagreement, but a culmination. Weeks of buried frustration came rushing to the surface. From Harry's side, it was about legacy, about connection, about not letting another moment pass where he could have stood up for his father, even silently. But for Meghan, it was about boundaries, about not bending to the same expectations and judgments she had worked so hard to escape. A second staff source, who claims to have overheard parts of the exchange from the hallway, described it as a full-scale row. According to them, Harry raised his voice in a way that was rare for him, measured but intense. He said something like, "You always say I'm free, but you don't want me to do anything that connects me to them. I can't erase who I am." Meghan, in response, was said to have maintained her composure for most of the argument, but grew visibly frustrated when Harry suggested going solo. She allegedly shot back, "Do you even hear yourself? You think showing up for 5 minutes changes anything? You think they'll forgive you? They'll just use you." At one point, a heavy door was slammed. Not out of violence, the sources insisted, but out of raw emotional overwhelm. Harry stormed into his office and shut the door so hard the glass on a nearby frame rattled, said one observer. Then it went quiet for almost an hour. What was happening in that hour remains unclear. But by the time Harry re-emerged, it was obvious, according to those present, that no compromise had been reached. Meghan was reportedly in the kitchen, phone in hand, coordinating with one of her staff members on a charity update. Harry walked in, stood silently for a moment, and then said, "They were expecting me. I know it." Meghan, without looking up, is said to have replied, "Let them expect. It doesn't mean you owe them anything." That sentence reportedly left Harry visibly stunned. According to the staff account, he stood there for several seconds, shoulders slumped, before walking back upstairs. He didn't yell. He didn't argue anymore. He just looked, defeated, the insider recalled. Later that afternoon, a delivery truck reportedly arrived at the estate. Inside were several large framed portraits and packages. One of them, according to a third source, was a commissioned print of a photo taken of Harry and Charles from 2018, smiling, mid-conversation, during Harry's last trooping as a full-time royal. The delivery, originally planned to mark the king's birthday, was allegedly intended to be a gift from Harry, but the staff say it was never sent. The painting remains, as far as they know, unopened in a back room near the wine cellar. The emotional weight of the day hung heavily over the estate. No visitors. No noise. No movement outside. Even the security team, usually tight-lipped and passive, seemed on edge. One guard told a colleague, according to a security leak, "This is the quietest I've ever seen this house." Later that evening, Harry reportedly made a phone call to someone in the UK. It's unknown who answered, if anyone did. Some speculate he tried to reach King Charles directly. Others believe he may have called a friend from Sandhurst or a former military superior. But according to those familiar with the Sussex household's mood, Harry was alone in his home office for over 2 hours, door closed, curtains drawn. Meghan, meanwhile, was said to be reviewing updates on social media and keeping an eye on the press reaction. Several reports claim she contacted her PR team multiple times, ensuring that Archwell's online messaging remained consistent and distraction-free. By 9 p.m., the house was dark. The fight had been intense, emotional, and ultimately unresolved. And it wasn't just about a parade. It was about two people with fundamentally different visions of their life together and who they owe their loyalty to. One insider framed it this way: Harry is still searching for something to anchor him. He's still clinging to fragments of his old world. Meghan has already burned that bridge. She doesn't want to go back, not even for a second. That gap, once small, is now growing. Observers and royal experts have speculated that this argument may have long-lasting consequences. While the couple has always portrayed themselves as united in their post-royal life, this moment, if the reports are accurate, may be the clearest example yet of a growing divide. Some tabloids have gone further, speculating that this may be the first of many such confrontations. They point to subtle body language cues in recent joint appearances, Meghan's increasing solo projects, and Harry's growing quietness in public as signs that all is not well. But perhaps what matters most is what didn't happen. No message was sent to the palace. No photos were posted. No gesture was made. The silence itself became the loudest statement of all. For Harry, who once marched proudly beside his brother on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, who once saluted his grandmother with tears in his eyes, this absence, this rupture, cuts deep. And this fight, played out far from the public's gaze, may represent the moment when private pain spilled into the open. For Meghan, it was another line drawn in the sand. Another refusal to bend, to compromise, or to expose herself to what she perceives as institutional cruelty. To her, this wasn't just a decision. It was a boundary. And for those watching from the outside, this episode served as confirmation. The dream of unity between the Sussexes and the royal family is no longer just fragile. It may be over. As the fireworks faded from the skies above Buckingham Palace and the crowds dispersed into the night, thousands of miles away, two people sat in silence, each convinced of their righteousness, yet unable to bridge the emotional chasm between them. And as the world moves on, one truth remains: when the flags came down and the music stopped, what was left behind in Montecito was not just a missed opportunity, but a widening crack in a royal marriage already strained by too many crossroads and too few compromises. As the dust settled after Trooping the Color 2025, there was no statement from the palace. No comment. No mention of the Sussexes. Not even a subtle nod to their absence during post-event briefings. In fact, from the moment the final military salute concluded, King Charles and Prince William seemed to proceed as if Harry and Meghan had never existed at all. In royal terms, silence is a weapon. It's a statement without ever uttering a word. And in this case, the message was deafening. Observers expected something. Perhaps a post-event comment about family unity. A vague phrase about those who could not attend. Even just a nod of acknowledgement during the king's brief speech at the post-parade luncheon. But there was nothing. Not a word. Not even off-the-record remarks from the usual palace-friendly journalists. This silence sparked an avalanche of interpretation. One longtime royal correspondent, speaking to a European news outlet, said it was by design, not accident. According to their palace sources, the king's communications team had drawn a line. There would be no conversation about the Sussexes. No reaction. No spin. The strategy was to starve the story of oxygen. But behind that strategy, insiders say, was something deeper: hurt. Reports from those close to the king suggest that Charles was, in fact, deeply disappointed by Harry's no-show. While he made no public appeal for reconciliation, it's understood that he was hopeful, perhaps quietly, that his son would find a way to appear, even discreetly. A source inside Clarence House claimed the king was noticeably more somber than usual in the early hours before the ceremony. He didn't say anything directly, the source shared, but he kept glancing at the guest list, as though waiting for a name to be added that never appeared. After the parade, King Charles reportedly hosted a small private luncheon at Buckingham Palace with senior members of the royal family. According to sources familiar with the event, conversation remained light and ceremonial, focused on the public's enthusiastic response, Catherine's stunning reappearance, and the smooth execution of the military display. But the absence of Harry loomed quietly over the table. It was the elephant in the room, said one aide. No one dared bring it up, but everyone felt it. Prince William, however, was said to be less conflicted. Insiders close to the heir apparent claim he had no expectations that Harry would attend. In fact, several reports suggest that William had actively blocked efforts by intermediaries to extend a more formal invitation to his brother. William's position is firm, said a former royal advisor. He believes Harry made his choices, and those choices have consequences. He's done with trying to fix what he sees as deliberate sabotage. This attitude is not new. The brothers have reportedly been estranged for years, communicating only through official channels. The last time they were seen speaking in public was at Queen Elizabeth's funeral. Since then, any hopes for a meaningful reconciliation have all but evaporated. One former palace communications staffer noted, "William sees Meghan as the root of everything." But at this point, he also holds Harry responsible for continuing the damage. It's not just about betrayal anymore. It's about trust, and for William, that trust is broken. The cold silence from William was not just emotional, it was strategic. By not acknowledging Harry or Meghan's absence, the palace was reinforcing a message. They are no longer relevant to the monarchy's forward-facing image. And the public noticed. While thousands of fans and commentators praised the day's ceremony, many also remarked on the striking lack of reference to the Sussexes. BBC's post-parade coverage, typically cautious, pointedly omitted any mention of Harry. Sky News offered a brief, understated observation, as with last year, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are not present. This omission didn't go unnoticed by social media. Across Twitter and Instagram, royal watchers shared clips and quotes under hashtags like #FrostySilence and #RoyalRejection. For the king, this silence was reportedly bittersweet. Sources claim that Charles has always harbored a soft spot for Harry. Despite the media wars, the interviews, the accusations in Spare, and the Netflix series, Charles has avoided outright condemnation. His approach, unlike William's, has been more cautious, sometimes hopeful, sometimes weary. But now, that patience may be wearing thin. A close friend of the king, interviewed by The Times, said Charles has become increasingly resigned. He still loves his son, but he's tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the apologies. Tired of being disappointed. This fatigue is compounded by the king's ongoing health issues. Earlier this year, Charles revealed he was undergoing treatment for an undisclosed condition. While his team insists he remains fit for duty, those close to him describe a man who is reflective, not reactive. Someone who is focusing on legacy and quietly cutting out sources of pain. Charles wants peace, said one royal source, but not at the expense of dignity. And right now, the silence is his way of maintaining both. Camilla, according to observers, mirrored this stance. Throughout the event, she was poised, smiling, and engaged, yet distant whenever the subject of family unity was brought up. At one point, during a brief walkabout after the parade, she was asked by a reporter if the king had spoken with Harry recently. Her reply, no comment. But body language experts noted that her expression tightened, her smile stiffened, and she moved on quickly. It was, they said, the look of someone hiding discomfort behind protocol. Meanwhile, Prince William's behavior was markedly composed. He was seen laughing with Catherine, guiding their children with firm yet gentle confidence, and engaging with the public. To the outside world, he was every inch the future king, steady, focused, unshakable. But to those watching closely, his silence on Harry was the clearest message of all. William is not interested in rebuilding that bridge, said royal historian Lydia Foster. He has a kingdom to prepare for. He sees Harry as a distraction, not a partner. And that's why he won't speak his name, not even in private. In the days after the event, the palace released several official photos. Group shots. Candid moments. Images of King Charles waving from the balcony, surrounded by heirs, working royals, and dignitaries. Harry and Meghan were, predictably, absent. But what made this year's release more pointed was the caption that accompanied one particular image. It read, "The royal family, united in service to the crown." 3 years ago, such a phrase might have been dismissed as a routine PR slogan. This year, it was read as a deliberate exclusion. The word united no longer included the Sussexes. And that was the point. Journalist Vanessa Rowell, writing for the London Review, commented, "The firm has spoken, not with words, but with omission." By refusing to acknowledge Harry and Meghan's absence, the palace has solidified a new royal narrative. One in which the Sussexes no longer play a role. This narrative has ripple effects far beyond the parade. It reshapes the monarchy's image for the public. It influences political discourse. It reframes the power dynamics within the institution. And most importantly, it leaves Harry in a deeper exile than ever before, one not of physical distance, but of symbolic erasure. Whether this silence will remain permanent is unknown. But for now, the message from King Charles and Prince William is clear. There will be no olive branch, no statement, No reaching out. Only silence. And in the royal family, silence speaks louder than any crown. At the core of every royal drama lies a personal struggle. And within the walls of Montecito, where silence has replaced ceremony, whispers have turned into full-blown allegations. The latest, Meghan Markle gave Prince Harry an ultimatum in the days leading up to Trooping the Colour 2025. A choice between his family in the UK and the life they've built together in the United States. According to multiple sources from within both royal circles and media insiders connected to Archewell, Meghan's alleged ultimatum wasn't a spontaneous reaction but a culmination of months of building tension. While no one can confirm with absolute certainty the exact words used, more than one insider has echoed the same phrase said to have been delivered by Meghan: "It's them or me." The simplicity of those 5 words belies the complexity they carried. To understand the magnitude of the alleged ultimatum, we must examine the backdrop leading up to this decisive moment. From the moment Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties in 2020, their relationship with the rest of the royal family has been, at best, strained. Over the years, they've navigated lawsuits, interviews, and tell-all memoirs. But according to a palace staffer who once worked closely with King Charles and has remained connected to the inner circle, this year was supposed to be different. That same source claims that early in 2025, King Charles had made what some insiders described as a tentative invitation for Harry to attend key royal events. While not extended publicly or formally, the king reportedly sent word through intermediaries that the door remains open, especially for Trooping the Colour, which was not only symbolic but personally important due to Charles's declining health. Harry reportedly received this information with mixed emotions. On the one hand, there was the pull of duty, heritage, and blood. On the other, there was his current reality, a life in California built around independence, reinvention, and the often complicated dynamics of his marriage. According to a close friend of the Sussexes, Harry initially saw the trooping event as an opportunity. He wasn't expecting a grand reunion. He wasn't expecting to be on the balcony, the friend explained. He just wanted to be present to acknowledge his father. But that alone became a problem. The problem, as multiple sources allege, was Meghan's firm resistance. Those familiar with her